everybody. This is John Norris at Trading Perspectives. As always, we have our very good friend, Sam Clement. Sam, say hello.
Hey, John. How's it going?
Man, I'm doing fantastic today. You know why I'm also doing super fantastic today is because we have a very special guest star today.
We do.
Yeah, we certainly do. Today we have Stewart Welch joining us here at Trading Perspectives. Stewart is the mayor of Mountain Brook, Alabama, on top of being the founder and CEO of the Welch Group here in town, one of the best wealth management firms in our general area. And if that weren't enough, he's a published author. He also used to write a newspaper column for first the Birmingham Post-Herald and then the Birmingham News, and he did that for about 20 years. And if that weren't enough, he's also an inventor, having got a patent on something called the uprighter. So he's a lifelong resident of Alabama and went to the University of Alabama himself. So Sam, an Auburn graduate like you, might be at loggerheads with Stewart, but trust me, Stewart's a pretty bright guy.
No, I think we met before, so I'm excited to have you on, Stewart.
Well, Stewart, thank you so much for coming on today.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
You know, and Stewart, you know, obviously with what's going on with COVID-19, the coronavirus, and people are, you know, out of work, you know, gee whiz, got the unemployment rate went up to 14.7%. At least that's what the Bureau of Labor Statistics told us last week. You already know all this. But, you know, something that's not necessarily getting the most headlines is just how disastrous this has been for a lot of state and local public finances. I mean, gee whiz. And while most of us think we might have a pretty decent idea of how state and local governments, in your case, local governments, how they get their revenue, would you mind just kind of give us a little bit of a refresher or telling us what would be some of the primary revenue streams for a city like the size of Mountain Brook?
Yeah, John, Sam, I'm delighted to be on the show. The first is that most municipalities get the bulk of their revenue from sales tax. So some of them from also they'll get property tax. There'll be business licenses tax, auto tax, and utility tax, and construction permits. So those are kind of what the most are. And you'll see a number of cities where the sales tax is by far the most important revenue. It can be 60 to 80% of their overall revenues. So you might imagine with what's going on with COVID and the impact of stay at home, how that has had an impact on these municipalities.
So when we're looking at about 60 to 70% of local government entities' finances receipts being transaction based, gee whiz, I mean that's a huge disruption in the revenue stream, and of course everyone sees fire trucks, police cars, school buildings, but there are a lot of other services that municipalities give to their populations. I mean, would you mind sort of touching on a few of those?
Well, I think you're right. They do see the police cars running around the city, and they see the fire trucks. I think everybody's pretty aware of garbage and trash. If you stop that for a week, you get everybody on the phone. So garbage and trash is obviously something that's really important. Maybe something that flies a little more under the radar. Every time we have a storm in Mountain Brook, you know, we have trees down across the road, and Public Works, Ronnie Vaughn over there at Public Works, he's got a crew out there immediately getting those trees off the roads, and that's going to be true across all municipalities. You're going to have things like street cleaning. You know, we have trucks that come through in the middle of the night that clean our streets, pick up garbage. You've got parks and rec, so you've got all of the municipalities have some form of parks or recreation facilities. All of those have to be maintained. Grass has to be cut. Leaves have to be blown. There's a whole lot that goes on in order to keep a city running and also to keep it beautiful.
Well, I mean, Sam, I was going to
say that. It kind of makes me think. I mean, since such a huge portion of state and both state and local revenue is really just transaction based. How much coordination really has there been between sort of the local entities, the municipalities, and the state regarding the shutting down of various businesses, and then now kind of the reopening of them?
So most of that has been a bit of a surprise. I tell you, the governor has not really reached out directly to the municipalities, mayors. What has happened, I think, which has been very helpful, is the Jefferson County Mayor's Association has a weekly call, a Zoom call where we all get on there and find out what's going on. But I tell you, our lifeline has been our state representatives. So for us, David Faulkner for the House, Dan Roberts for the Senate. they've done a really good job. They do have the ear of the governor. So those people are on the phone with the governor, and then they're in turn reaching out to us and letting us know what's going on as soon as they know. I'm sure at the governor's level, things are happening, well behind the scenes and, meeting after meeting and making decisions and not wanting to air those decisions before they have been finalized. All that makes perfect sense. We see that even at the city council level when you're making decisions. So, and also at the Jefferson County Commission, Steve Amons has reached out to us with help, ideas for help and just making sure that everybody's okay. So I think our lifeline has been our representatives between the representatives that, serve us up there in Montgomery.
Well, Stewart, I mean, you really hit on something that kind of surprised me, that the governor's office really hadn't been in huge discussions, it seems like, with some of the mayors around the state and maybe even the county commissioners. And I guess that's probably the norm across the country. I mean, to the best of your knowledge, have other states been dealing with their municipalities the same way as Alabama has? Do you know?
Well, I've definitely not heard anything different, and I don't want to say Governor Aveney hadn't reached out to maybe the five largest mayors of the five largest cities. So I don't know the answer to that. I know that there's, they've put together a group that has worked closely with her in the past, but they definitely have not. I've gotten no calls from the governor, that's for sure.
Let's hope she's calling Faulkner at least.
Yeah, well, no, they are definitely they're definitely doing some kind of Zoom calls with the state representatives and keeping them in the loop. And I think that, and they're in turn reaching out to us. So that's been very helpful. I don't need to speak to the governor. I just need to know what's going on as soon as everybody else does.
Yeah, and Sam, I mean, don't let me talk over you, but I'm a resident of Mountain Brook. Stewart, I don't expect you to go into the details of Mountain Brook's finances, but how do you think other public entities are handling this economic storm right now? Just if 60 to 70% of your revenues are transaction based and sales tax, good night. I mean, I would imagine there are rainy day funds and what have you, but just how do you think maybe some other places, maybe not in Mountain Brook, but some other places, maybe in West Jefferson County, how can they weather the storm right now?
I think that they are all buttoned down, doing the very best they can, and they are, I'm sure, putting out fires and coming up with the best plans they can. So most municipalities across the state, I'm sure, operate on very tight budgets. Even the city of Mountain Brook, we probably have about a 2% we don't have debt, but we have 2% margin, only about a 2% margin of revenues over expenses. So it doesn't take much of a pothole or much of even a very small landmine to begin to throw you off. So even at the Mountain Brook level, we're looking at, how do we trim back? So if you go into a lot of these municipalities that were in trouble when we were in the middle of a bull market, and the economy was super strong, you just can't imagine how they're bound to be scrambling now. And John and Sam, I know you know this, that most companies' biggest line item of expense is going to be personnel. It's going to be their payroll.
Sure.
And of course, nobody wants to lay people off. Nobody wants to furlough people. And I'm sure that you start with capital projects that you can postpone, and you just go down the expense line. But before too long, you're going to get to personnel. And I think what everybody's hoping is that we can get through this, extreme rough spot and get people back to work, which the governor's just announced. And you get them back to work, and you hope that hope that the public, that the citizens respond and start spending money and in ways that help those sales revenues come back up.
Yeah, we've seen the Federal Reserve talking about they've created some sort of lending facility. How has that really helped, and has that really been a good way to kind of bridge this time where there's no sort of transaction income coming in, or has that kind of been not really there?
That we've seen none of that. I do think what is in the pipeline is a package that is being talked about right now at the U.S. House level, and it's a package that is somewhere between 700 million and $1 billion, and it's really directly for states and municipalities, split about half and half. And my guess is that is going to be very much needed. I know there was some commentary on one side that we should just, let the states and the municipalities just, weather the storm on their own, which I think that would be very difficult for them to do. And so some kind of relief at the municipality level and the state level is going to be a real lifeline. It's going to be something that I think is really needed. And if that can come through, then, that may be just enough to get us on the other side of this.
Well, Stewart,
when you say,
go ahead, Sam.
I was going to say, when you say if we don't pass this, it'd be pretty difficult for some municipalities. Are you kind of thinking some maybe bankruptcy, or what do you think that would look like, those difficulties, if we weren't able to get another package passed?
Well, we've never seen anything like this in our lifetime. It is totally unprecedented, and it would be hard for me to imagine that municipalities would be able to, all the municipalities, particularly the ones that were already on the margin, would be able to survive this without the wholesale elimination of services. And I think, when you talk about that, you're talking about, something that would look like very significant layoffs. And, that has a snowball effect. So right now, I read one report that 33 million unemployed, but 77% of those are expected to return to work. And if that happens, you can maybe get this economy back on track. If that doesn't happen, you can't have, well, you quoted, John, in the beginning, 14% unemployed, and there's expectation that number could easily rise to 20%. In the Great Depression, 1933, it was 25%. So, and that was over several years. Think of this. This happened, you got that many people, 20 to 30 million people out of work in a month. I mean, it is unbelievable. And so if there was ever a case where government needed to provide some intervention, some financial intervention, this would be the case. And I think if we can get enough help to kind of right the ship and get people back to work, I think we can all get through this.
Another one, Stewart, while we've been sitting here talking this afternoon, I just came up with a wonderful way for Mountain Brook to kind of pad its finances a little bit, and that's charging a usage fee on Jefferson Parkway every afternoon, because it seems as though the entire metropolitan area of Birmingham is down there walking on our footpath. So, but it's been a beautiful weather to do that. So,
it has. We've had a lot of people there. I drive by there and go, those people, I'm not sure those people all in the same family, and they're definitely not 6 feet apart. So we definitely have some need to get some extra help on social distancing.
Well, you bring up a good point there, because I go there walk most afternoons, and it's very difficult to keep social distancing at all the time. So obviously everyone hopes that we can skirt a whole big wave of municipal and county bankruptcies, but this is maybe a little bit beyond your normal purview, Stewart. But when you start taking a look at some states like Illinois and even Rhode Island with their massive projected benefit obligations, it's going to be very difficult. I find it very difficult to believe that they'll be able to come out of this without some significant amount of pain. Have you thought about those state level situations?
Yeah, I do think that one of the biggest concerns that I have across, it's a big concern I have at the city of Mountain Brook, but across the country, is unfunded pension liability. So when you get into these big states, northern states, the numbers are they're really just massive. And, they're obviously totally dependent upon, revenue in order to service the debt on those. And even then I look at it and go, I don't know how some of these states are ever going to get on the other side of this without there being a default. And so I do think that this is a place where you actually need the government to step in and provide some solutions, provide some at least short-term funding, so that we have got to get everybody back to work, and we've got to figure out how to do it in a safe way.
I agree. Now, Sam, I mean, you and I were talking about it. I mean, what, Sam? I mean, what do you think the new normal looks like for local government? Stewart, I mean, how about you?
Yeah, what do you think success will kind of look like for the municipalities, whether it's what we do going forward or what we need to be doing now? What do you kind of view success for this scenario we're in right now looking like?
I think that I think if we learn something from this, we learn that we actually can operate from being remote. And that is at the business level and at the municipality level. So we get a report every week from all of our department heads on what's going on. They're virtually all working from home, and it is going remarkably well. We're continuing to provide services. There's a few services that we're not doing right now, but we're continuing to provide those essential services. Not really much of a hitch in it, which is, you kind of think is surprising. And the advent of Zoom and everything that's gone on there at the business level, as a business, we're looking at it and going, well, this wasn't as hard as we thought it would be. So I do think that that there are ways to operate efficiently and safely so that we'll start rotating people back into the office, but not have everybody in here at once. And the city, I'm sure, will do the exact same thing. So there are ways to do it. I do think that it's going to press people to have more robust online platforms for their sales. So we had fortunately redone our website at the city, and a lot of things could be done online. So this has kind of forced people online, and they found, wow, it isn't that hard. I can do this pretty successfully. And so I think our local retailers and our restaurants and everybody's starting to figure out some online strategies. And, until they find a vaccine or until they find a very successful treatment plan for COVID, this is just not going to go away. And so we have to come up with better ways of doing business. And I think this is a horrible way to have a test run, but it has turned out to be a pretty strong test run on how you can still operate and do it safely and do it remotely if you have to.
In that regard, it sounds like running a city is almost the same as like running a business. And Sam, I'm sorry for talking over you.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's almost a interesting way to have a test run when you have to. You're not just doing it because you want to try it out. So I think human ingenuity has come out a lot during all this.
And I think if there's going to be a lesson learned, the COVID-19 is probably not the last one of these we'll see in our lifetime. But the next time it happens, I think we will be significantly ready. As a city, we're always looking at what's working, what's not working. When we get through with this and everybody does get back to work eventually, we will have a plan in place that says we can go remote at a moment's notice and we can do it successfully. And I think businesses are doing the same thing. I think our retailers are doing the same thing. We're doing a lot of things at the local level, but based on the reopening to try to help our businesses, at least in the short run.
It sounds like you guys are trying to weather it as best you can. You're doing a great job. You're adjusting and coming up with new processes, procedures, kind of on the fly, just like the rest of us. And Stewart, I know that you're also running a business as well as a city, and you've taken steps there with the Welch Group, just like we're doing here at Oakworth Capital Bank. And you're right. One of the things that we have found is we can operate remotely a lot more effectively than we ever thought we could have. And that is going to be one of the bigger changes coming out of this is we're going to be able to work a little bit more remotely and perhaps a little bit more efficiently. Sam, what do you think about that?
Love it.
That's Stewart. We really appreciate having you on. We're going to give you, I typically give Sam the last chance to add any words of wisdom, but today we're going to, as you as our honored guest, we're going to give you last chance to make a plug or say anything or any other wisdom you might be able to give us here today. Stewart, the floor is yours.
Well, I think all of us can be part of the solution. All of us can be part of creating success for our cities. And I've got 4 things that everybody needs to really pay attention to as we get back to work. One is social distancing. That is really important. It is very serious. We need people to do it. We would ask people to wear face coverings when they're in public, particularly when they're walking in public buildings, particularly like a grocery store where it is often impossible to maintain social distancing 100% of the time. The third one would be exceptional personal hygiene. You need to be washing your hands and using hand sanitizer much more often. Everybody's doing it now, but in the old days, we didn't do it very much. Now we need to do it. It just needs to be part of our routine. And then the fourth and by far the most important is shop local, whether that's in person or online. Our businesses that make up our cities are incredibly important. They need our help more now than ever. And I always tell people, can you imagine Mountain Brook without any of our retailers or restaurants? Can you imagine what that city would be like? And if you imagine what your own city would be like and you don't have any of the retailers, everybody's shopping, online somewhere else, and nobody's going local. So we have to support these people in their time of greatest need. So if you're going to shop online, make sure it's online local. And now we can go in person, we can dine in. And I can tell you that all the people that own these restaurants are going through extraordinary measures to make sure that's both a safe and truly rewarding experience. So let's all work together and let's create success together.
Stewart, that's a perfect way of ending this. 4 wonderful bullet points, 4 wonderful ideas on how to help your locality out, and how to help your neighborhood and your citizens. So we really do appreciate having you on here today, Stewart. And hopefully maybe some other time you can join us again.
I would love to. I appreciate y'all having me. This is actually my first podcast. So it's been a lot of fun working with you, John, and Sam. I appreciate what y'all are doing.
Well, thank you so much, Stewart.
We appreciate it.
All right. That's all we've got here today for Trading Perspectives. Y'all take care.